I'm Cynthia Murphy.
And I'm Georgia Bowers.
And this is Delete My Browser History. So this podcast came about from Georgia and I are both young adult authors, and we have found ourselves having text message conversations that get a little bit weird about the things that we end up researching. So I'm trying to think of the one that you sent me about when you were writing about the little boy monster.
Oh, when I was saying, do you think you could eat vocal cords easily?
Yeah, or is that too much for a young adult novel? And we kind of decided that, well, if we're researching all these weird things, other people probably are as well. And we often wonder if we should delete our browser history. So we're going to tell you about some strange things, one topic each per week, and then we'll have a special guest author as well every week who will tell us about something weird that they've researched. I am going to go first. Are you ready?
I'm ready for this. I have no idea what you're going for, so I'm very excited stroke nervous.
So I'm going to start with a bang, and I am going to have a blanket apology right now for anything that I ever mispronounce or say wrong, because I'm from Manchester and I only know most words through reading them in books. So if it's wrong, I'm sorry. So I am covering books made out of human skin.
Lovely.
So I have done some research on mainly Wikipedia, but I've also had a look at Atlas Obscura, and then I've got some further reading links at the end if everybody is really interested in human skin books. So the official term for human skin books is anthropodermic bibliopedgy. And as of April 2022, 31 out of the 50 books that have claimed to have been made out of human skin have been examined and confirmed.
Oh.
So in the world, there are 50 books that claim to be made out of human leather. And there is a group that I'll talk about, and they're going around the world and they're conducting research and looking into whether they're actually made out of human skin or not. So out of the 31 that have been examined so far, 18 of them have been confirmed human and 13 are made out of animal leather. And some are even made of fake leather, but just really good quality fake leather.
Ah.
So the term anthropodermic bibliopedgy comes from ancient Greek. So anthro is man, dermic is skin, biblio is book, and pedgy comes from pegia, which means to fasten. So it literally means to fasten a book together with human skin.
And so can we assume that it's always male skin and not female skin?
It's a bit of both. And I'll talk about where it comes from, because it's all a bit, let's say it's not politically correct anymore.
No.
So it's when a book is bound in the skin of its author. So one example that's a famous one is called The Highwayman, and that's in a private library at Boston Athenaeum. So lots of these books are in America. This one is particularly well known because it was written by a famous highwayman. So it tells the story of James Allen, whose alias was George Walton. And he was a highwayman who died in 1837. And when he was in prison, he decided he'd write his life story about being a highwayman. On the cover, it says, Hic liber Waltonis cute compactus est. This book is bound in the skin of Walton. So the catalogue's a bit hazy on where and why, but the story goes that when he wrote this in prison, he knew he was dying. He asked for his skin to be preserved and this to be bound in his skin and be gifted to a guy that he had tried to rob when he was a highwayman, because the man fought him off and he admired his bravery. So he wanted to
this
send
was his
him.
way of repaying him.
Yeah. Like, here's a book of my skin and my evil deeds, and well done for being a brave little guy. So it's a little bit hazy, and that all comes from rarebookhub.com. So that's a bit of a bonkers one. There are loads of early references to human skin books. So there's one from Bremen in 1710, which was written about, and they said it looked like pig skin. And there was also rumours of human skin tanning, not factories, but like areas outside of Paris during the French Revolution. So we know the French Revolution was a bit crazy anyway, so I can completely see that happening, but I don't think there's any proven records. A lot seem to date from the 19th century, so 1800s, which fits in with all the weird Victorian stuff that I'm going to talk about on a later episode. So some examples of confirmed human skin books. Like I talked about, the Highwayman, he asked for copies of his deathbed confession to be bound and given to the man he robbed and his doctor. There is one that is supposedly bound in the skin of William Burke of Burke and Hare fame, so the grave robbers from Edinburgh. It's a notebook. It's not known if it's written in or not, but the doctor who had access to the cadavers of William Burke after he was executed, he used the skin. So doctors had a lot of access to criminal cadavers, and we think that that's where a lot of the skin for these books came from. There's a Holbein Dance of Death, which has been confirmed. And then there's one story, which is really, I've written yuck, stories about erotica being bound, like 19th century erotica being bound in the skin of female breasts, but there's no supporting evidence. But there is one story of this astronomer called Camille Flammarion, and this woman so admired him that she left her skin in her will so he could bind his works in her skin. But again, that's not confirmed. But there seems to be some weird fetishy female stuff.
Does it still have nipples on it?
I don't. This one's not confirmed, so I don't even know if this is real. But then there's some that haven't been checked yet. So that takes me on to identification. So in order to identify a human skin book, you have got to examine the pattern of the hair follicles. It's very subjective, and it becomes harder due to the leather being treated. You could use DNA in principle, but tanning can destroy it and degrade it over time, and it can be contaminated by readers and the acids in their hands. So that's how people tried to identify them in the past. But now there's this group who are doing peptide mass fingerprinting and matrix assisted laser description / ionization. So that analyzes the proteins and collagen, and they only need a little pinprick of the leather to do it with. If levels indicate that it's a primate, it's implied that it's human because monkeys have not been known to be used for bookbinding in the past.
No, that would be insane.
Yeah, so it's like normally sheepskin or cow, or so the ones that have been analysed and found to be real, there are 5 at the College of Physicians in Philadelphia. 3 are in the skin of one woman, and this woman is known as Mary Lynch, and it's only known that it's her because inside, the doctor who bound these books in her skin has written, these are in the skin of Mary Lynch, who died at the age of, I think it's like 23, of consumption. So we don't know whether she agreed to this or not, but apparently he took the skin of her thighs, and then this is what he did with them. I know. There's 4 at Brown University. There's 3 claimed at Harvard, but only 1 has actually been confirmed. There's 1 at the Wellcome Library in London, which is just opposite Euston train station. And the rest are in the US, apart from one called Le Scarabée d'Or, which is by Edgar Allan Poe. It's from 1892, and it means the golden scarab. And this is the description. And now if I was going to have a human skin book, this is the one I would want. Decoration of a gold bug descending from the eye socket of a skull above the cross, sickle and shovel decoration. And that's in somebody's private collection in France since 2016. There's a similar design in the Royal Library of Belgium. That's a book by a physician. And then some other interesting ones that are suspected but haven't been examined yet. One is called the Trinium Magicam, which has to be real, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's from 1673, and that's in the Jubilee Library in Brighton in the UK. There's 2 copies of the French Constitution in a museum in Paris from 1789 and 1793. The Poetical Works of John Milton from 1852 is in Exeter, and that is supposedly bound in the skin of George Cudmore, who was hanged for murder in 1830. And the last one I only came across yesterday, and it really made me laugh because it was found in the city centre of Leeds, where somebody had burgled it from a house and then dumped it, obviously thinking it was just a boring old book, and it was worth £30,000. Yeah, but imagine stumbling across that in the middle of Leeds on a night out. So
see, when I picture them, I think of the book from Hocus Pocus.
I'll get to that.
With an eye.
Special mention for Hocus Pocus.
Yeah.
So, of course, nowadays there are ethical and legal issues surrounding any use of human leather. So it can be classed as trophy collection, which is a serial killer favourite, repatriation of remains. So the, conversations about whether older remains should be given back to family members or buried. There's a Human Tissue Act of 2004, which regulates the removal, storage, use and disposal of human bodies, organ and tissue. So, of course, any of these books would be kind of contravening that. You do see them popping up on TV and books and popular media. So, of course, Hocus Pocus, the Sanderson Sisters have a book that's a patchwork of human skin and has a moving eye. And in Deborah Harkness's Book of Life trilogy, which I read years ago, but I remember loving, in the final book, there is a book made out of human skin. They also appear in the Evil Dead series. There's one in Time Traveler's Wife, which I don't remember. There was one in Supernatural, and there's one in Assassin's Creed Unity. So if you are interested in finding out more, you can have a look at the Anthropodermic Book Project, which is anthropodermicbooks.org. That's the group who are actually examining them. Oddthingsconsidered.com had a really interesting article called Anthropodermic Bibliopegy, a Flay on Words. So I read it just for the title. And Atlas Obscura, there's one called Seeking the Truth Behind Books Bound in Human Skin. And that's by Megan Rosenblum, who is one of the colleagues who are doing the research to prove whether they're real or not. And that's really good about ethics and questioning gentleman doctors in the 18th and 19th century and what they were actually doing with these bits of dead people.
Not good, not good.
So there we go.
Oh, that's nice. Nice start to the.
So if you don't want to hear anything else like that, maybe don't listen anymore.
Yeah, maybe stop listening. Yeah. And why do we think? Why I just think. Why?
I know.
So many questions.
There's nothing to say why, and there's no contemporary report. There's nothing survived where a doctor has said, "Oh, and this is why I've done it," or it just seems to be a little bit of an ego thing of they had access to this body and it was only going to be thrown in a pauper's grave or something like that. So they've bound their own works in it, because a lot of them are kind of doctor type books.
It's the one that you said that they weren't sure whether it had any actual text inside it, so like it was just a blank, like a notebook you just like get from Paperchase. Something to write your notes in.
If you Google, that's on, you can see pictures of it. In fact, I'll save some pictures and I'll put them on our Instagram and then people can have a look.
Oh, that's lovely.
Very strange.
And where was this featuring in a book, or was this just something that you came across by accident?
I came across this when I was researching Victorian like death and mourning stuff for Last One to Die. And I looked into Burke and Hare at one point, and it came up there and went down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So, and also I think when I've got a grimoire at the end, and whenever you look up things like grimoires and magic books, there's always that little inkling that they might be a bit gory.
Yeah. Lovely.
Okay, your turn.
Well, that was lovely, thank you. So glasses on, glasses off. Right, so I'm going to be talking to you about witch bottles.
Yay!
So I like a good witch, and the book Mark of the Wicked is about witches, but also, do you remember that classic Clockwick River?
I do. Clockwick River, guys, find it on Wattpad.
Yeah, still on Wattpad. So there was so much witch stuff that I could have shared, but I think I love this idea about witch bottles, because I first read about it in the Fortean Times, and I was fascinated because they found a witch bottle in a house near me. So that's kind of like where the sort of interest started. And I just think I love this story about someone on the Antiques Roadshow. The expert was given a small glass bottle that he thought was port or red wine from the 1840s. So he unstoppered it and took a little sip, and he was actually drinking 180-year-old urine.
Nice.
With a few bits of nail clippings and
why?
some nail. Yeah.
Why?
Pardon?
Why?
Why would he drink it? It's just curiosity, isn't it? But he said it was too good an opportunity to miss, because he thought it was like really old port or wine, so he thought it was just going to be. But he took it all in very good.
Well, that's where greed gets you, isn't it, guys?
So yeah, it was actually a witch bottle that they'd found, and it was found under the threshold of somebody's house, and this tends to be where they find them, because they're always hidden around entrances or exits of people's houses, and they're sort of they date back to the 1600s, and the ones that older ones are sort of, they're normally these sort of stoneware bottles, which are called Bellamine bottles. They're sort of light bulb shaped, and they're called Bellamine because they were named after some cardinal who called Bellarmine, who published some anti-Protestant literature. So that's where they get the name from. So as I said, some are just glass bottles. But so the idea is, when I first heard of them, I thought that they were something that witches made, that they were like a witch's spell, but they're actually used to ward off witches' spells and witchcraft. So the idea is that you make one and then you hide it somewhere in your house, and that will protect you from witches. But the person who puts the bottle together, you have to fill it with an assortment of items, and you can find lists of what should go into a witch bottle in various places. And most commonly it would be urine and bent pins.
Why?
We all know, that is the secret ingredient to warding off witchcraft. But often there'd be teeth in there as well. And I might be talking about teeth again a bit later. So I've read a few. And what I'll do is I'll send the links and the sources through as well. But I've read a couple of different reasons as to why it's the urine and all that sort of stuff. So one of the reasons given is that the urine was believed to lure. I can never say this word. Lure. Do you know what word I'm trying to say?
No. Clear.
Lure. When you lure someone into a trap. How do you say that word? Lure.
Lure.
Lure. Anyway, Sorry.
North-South divide.
This is going to happen a lot, isn't it? Yeah, so it was believed to lure witches traveling through the supernatural otherworld into the bottle, where they would then get trapped and caught up by the sharp points of the pins that were in there. And they put, as I said, the would-be witchcraft victims, they'd put the bottles underneath hearths or often around chimneys, because there was all this like danger and concern about witches and things, you know, from the other world entering the house through the chimney. It was like a real superstition thing.
But Santa's fine.
Well, yeah, he's fine. So yeah, normally around the exit or the entry. But I've also read reports that the idea was that somehow that the spell that the witch had put on you would kind of be thrown back on the witch. So the urine in the bottle represented the waterworks of the witch. So the nails and the bent pins would aggravate her so badly that when she went for a pee, she'd be in so much pain that she'd then take the spell off of you. So that's another theory. But I also read that the idea was that the urine and the hair and the nail clippings were supposed to represent the person who was burying the bottle. So it would confuse the witch. So they'd see, oh yeah, urine, nails, hair, that must be my victim. I'll direct my magic there. And then it would like absorb the spell that was being put on them.
Oh, that's clever, because there's all, like they say nail clippings and hair and things. There are people who are really superstitious and will like flush away the nail clipping so it can't be used by witches. Not that exactly. I do that. I do that. I read it in a book once and I do it every time.
There you go. You have to be so careful all the time. So they found it. They found lots of these witch bottles all over the place. So I've got a few examples of ones that have been found. There was one that was found in the 1980s, a sort of a modern style witch bottle, which was, they found it on the shores of the Thames, and it was a plastic pill bottle, and it had human teeth in it, loads of human teeth and some coins and a tiny bottle of clove oil. And experts think that someone buried it to kind of cure a toothache. But I mean, that's people are still using them until then. So another Victorian bottle that would have been used to ward off evil spells was found in the birthplace of a witch called Angeline Tubbs. Now, she sounds very interesting. She's known as the Witch of Saratoga, but I can't find much information about her. I might try and do a bit of research for a future
Saratoga
one.
Is that in the US?
In the States, yeah. So she was born in Northamptonshire in this pub called the Star and Garter, which is where they found this witch bottle. So they think that whoever was living there, they think it was from about the 19th century. So it's sort of a lot late after she was born there, but they think maybe the people who were living were concerned that there might be some residue, evil hanging around because there was a witch living there. But just she went to the States. She met this a British officer from he was at the regiment of, where was it, Huntingdonshire, and she was 15 when she followed him over to the States when he fought in the Revolutionary War. But then he just abandoned her there. And I mean, she would have been so like 15 when she went there, she, just a child. And because she didn't know anybody and she didn't know, the area, she just ended up walking for like 15 miles till she just found somewhere in the wilderness, and she was just like, I'll just live here then. And in Saratoga Springs. And then she settled at the base of this hill called Mount Vista, which was a small mountain. And she just lived in this hut and just gave people, she told fortunes and stuff her whole life while she was there. She could be seen outside during storms, just holding her arms up as the rain was falling down. I mean, what a life. What a life she's living.
Sounds great.
I know. And apparently she died in 1865 at the age of 104.
Wow.
So if there's any, reason for just discarding modern life and living a rich and full life, then I think that's probably her anyway. So yeah, that's yes, Angeline Tubbs, the Witch of Saratoga. So yes, anyway, so they found one in where she was born. And yeah, I mean, I think they just keep popping up all over the place, these witch bottles.
They do.
And I quite like the idea of them. And it's an example of one of those things that you spend ages researching, and then you perhaps mentioned it in like one sentence in your book.
Yes.
And that's it.
Yeah, agreed. Well, that's exactly what I did. Human skin books, there's, a grimoire at the end. And I don't even think I say it's out of human skin, but that's the rabbit hole I went down just for that bit.
Yeah, so there you go. That's witch bottles.
Well done. Thank you.
Thanks for listening.
And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
I do it anyway. I can't help it.
I know, you can't help it.